Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Leader Tips by E. If you have not done so already and you've been paying attention and watching some of my videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and also like and share my videos as you see fit. I also encourage you to ring the bell so whenever there's new content released that you're able to get a hold to the newest content we have available. Today, what we're going to talk about is very near and dear to my heart, and I'll actually share with you what led up to this. This week, we've been talking about how to leverage your voice. On Monday, I posted a video talking about how to leverage your voice when you're being interrupted in meetings. And something that I've actually had to coach a lot of ladies with particularly is how to leverage their voice by asking for what they wanted, particularly as it relates to compensation and salary negotiations. And so today we're going to spend some time talking about that. I had a real dose of this in my early 30s. Some of you might know this. I was 18 with one child. I was 19 with two children. And by the age of 24, I had three children. Not only did I have three children at the age of 24, I also was flying solo. So financially, I had to take care of everything on my own. I always saw a very strong and independent mom who did not rely on the system, who truly worked and worked her way up in her space of technology. And so she was able to really provide for me and my brother. And she was the example of what I wanted to be like. I wanted to make sure that I didn't rely on the system and I truly did work hard to get the things that I needed to provide for me and my little family. So it was like in my early 30s, I started into my first, actually it was like, probably about 27, I started into my first management position. And when I was in that role, I really enjoyed it. I flourished in the role. And there were many days, because I was actually living about 45 miles from where I worked, there were truly days when I knew I would get to work. I just didn't know how I would get home. There were days when I had to look all throughout my car to find as much change as possible to try to at least put $3.89 in the tank just to get from there back home to my children. There were days when I had to really think about, am I going to eat today and find a $1 burger at Sonic, or if I am going to get gas to get home? There were days that even when I went home, I knew my children would eat. I just didn't know how I was going to eat. And guess what? I just counted that all toward, okay, I'll lose 2 pounds tonight. There were days when there were really, really tough days. And I know we talk a lot about living paycheck to paycheck. I wasn't even making it to the next paycheck. So I don't know what that's called. And I wasn't even making it to the next 2 weeks for the paycheck. And this is when my skill sets and my determination and me recognizing the value I added to anything that I do really showed up and came into play. And this is the first time I had to negotiate. And so I was currently in a role and I really wanted to stay with the organization and I needed more money. That's just face it. I needed more money. I needed more money to be able to go and take care of my kids in the way that they needed to be taken care of, as well as to take care of myself. And a couple of things I did, I just wanted to share here today on what helped me to be effective and successful with the negotiation. The purpose of this video is to provide you, if you're in a role, you're at a job and you want to stay there, what are some tips you can implement that will help you to be able to negotiate a higher salary? And then also, what if you're like, you know what, I really want to move into another role with another position. How do I do a fresh negotiation? Both of these circumstances, you'll learn a lot from this video that you can apply in those circumstances. Before we get started, though, I do want to share with you some very alarming statistics around negotiations. Some of them might sadden you, and my hope is that they empower you to feel like, you know what, I am worth it, and I am going to start negotiating my worth and negotiating my salary. The first thing is about mindset, though. We do have to have the mindset, and that's what I had to get used to, is stop thinking about why not negotiate and ask for more, and start thinking about why should I not negotiate and ask for more. And so that is the first step, is shifting our mindsets from why negotiate to why not negotiate. A few pieces of information I want to share is that did you know that organizations automatically expect men to negotiate and they don't automatically expect women to negotiate? There truly is a pay gap between a gender pay gap as well as a race pay gap. There are some roles and some jobs that you really can't negotiate your salary. And the reason being is because maybe it's an hourly position. Some government organizations are like this as well, where they have like a preset amount that you make. It could be maybe you're in customer service or something like that. Some of those roles you really can't negotiate because it's predetermined and preset. You're going to make $18 an hour. Now, let's just say, for instance, you work at a pizza company and you are the best pizza flipper in the world. They might give you 24 cents extra, so $18.24. And for the most part, those salary ranges and the rates are pretty much predetermined. So there are some times when you really can't negotiate your pay. We're not really talking about those times. We're talking about as you start to move up in your career, when you are probably responsible for other people, you're really climbing the ladder, you're probably in your first management position. That's when compensation discussions should come into play, and we should be okay and comfortable with having them. One other thing I wanted to just share with you, I was doing some research on pay scale, and it showed that I believe women normally are at their peak in their career as far as salary when they're 44 years old. And that peak, that average salary for a woman at 44 years old is like $61,000 a year. Well, that's quite different for men. Men normally reach their peak in their career from a salary perspective at the age of 55. So they have 11 more years on us. And at 55, they're making about $101,000. So you all can see the humongous difference between 61 and 101,000. And even at the age group on when we start to kind of peak in our salary for our career, it truly is a humongous difference. Another thing that was also interesting to me is that women today typically make 81 cents on the dollar of a white man. And women of color typically make 75 cents on that dollar of a white man. And so what that should tell you is that there's an opportunity for us to start asking more for what we need and what we want based on our value that we bring to an organization. I'm going to share with you a couple of tips, and hopefully you're able to gain some knowledge on how to start leveraging your voice to ask for what you want. Here we go. The first thing you have to do is you have to do your research. We do not ask for more money, ask for a change in our salary just off a gut feeling or because we've compared our salary with Jane's salary. The challenge is, unless you see an actual offer letter that has been signed, you can't always go off of what people tell you they make. And that's just the real deal, because people will kind of embellish that a little bit. And so you have to do your research. You can go to Indeed, you can go to salary.com, and there are other channels that you can use to learn more about a salary for an industry and a role. What I love about Indeed is that you put in the role and you also put in the industry, because a program manager in a technology industry might get paid more than a program manager at a staffing agency. And so you want to just make sure that you put in the role as well as the industry, and then that'll help you to know what is the low point, what is the midpoint, and then what is the high point. And you can see that salary range in front of you. You want to do your research based on that. Did you know that most companies, or not most companies, but a lot of companies do provide an area of space for you to negotiate? So let's just say, for instance, the range goes from 55,000 to 90,000. Then they might position, 65,000, and that just gives you some freedom to negotiate. And so again, it is to be expected. There are some industries where women are historically paid lower than men. Do your research there as well. Why is that important? That's going to be important because it also gives you the knowledge and the insight to know how much you can negotiate and what your negotiation room looks like. The next thing is that I had to be very clear on my role and also my contributions, how I had contributed to the team so far. And I also had to be very confident in how I asked for what I want based on how I was able to transform work, transform processes, transform people. And so you want to be very clear on the value you bring to the company. You bring a lot of value. And I want you to sometimes sit back and just noodle on it. And the reason I say that is because I think a lot of times we take the great stuff we do for granted. Oh, I'm a great facilitator. Oh, I'm a great note taker. Oh, I'm a great listener. And we really don't take those great skills and see how it positively impacts the environment we're in. That's how you want to communicate it when you're talking to your manager, if you're already in a job, or if you're on an interview and you're talking with the interviewer. You want to make sure that you take those unique skills you have and really be able to show how you're able to transform work, transform people, transform processes by that unique skill. Let me give you an example. I wouldn't just say that I am a great trainer or a great facilitator. I would need to give more. I am a very thought-provoking facilitator. I always drive engaging facilitation sessions. Why is that important? That's important because I understand that in a new hire space, we are trying to retain employees. I'm able to provide insightful learning experiences to leaders that help them to start thinking differently, thus shifting how they show up in the workplace. Because they're shifting how they show up in the workplace, they're being more inclusive. Guess what? We're able to retain our new hires. So we're not spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on always bringing in new employees. You have to be able to see what you do, recognize the importance of that skill, tie it back to the importance to the organization and even the cost savings or the improvement it brings to the overall process with the company. So again, I encourage you to sit back and think about all your skills. If you're a project manager, what does it take to be a great project manager? You have to be a person who's, pays close attention to detail. You have to be a person that's organized. You have to be a person that cares and sticks to timelines. You have to be a person that can connect with other people. You have to be a person that has informal influence because these people you're connecting with that are a part of the project, they do not report to you. So you have to have the ability to influence them to want to work. I want you to think about all of those things it takes for you to do what you do very well. And once you have them all written out, now you start to tie it into the so what? Well, why is it important that you have informal influence? I have informal influence, which allows people to work for me and drive work because they enjoy working for me. What does that do? That allows us to meet our deadlines on time. Thus, we have happy employees and even happier customers. You have to not take your great skill sets for granted. really think them through. The last thing I encourage is to also use keywords when you're having this negotiation conversation. And even as you're planning, think about these keywords. If you've ever been in sales, you've heard of a thing called peers, and peers is PIERS, and it's about performance or productivity, image, efficiency or effectiveness. The R is about revenue, and then the S can be like safety and security. And so based on the role a person has in an organization, there are these key buzzwords or key things that are extremely important to them. I think about from a learning and development space, we care a lot about image of the company. We care a lot about branding. We care a lot about development. We care a lot about new hire onboarding experiences. So once you know what that team cares about, you want to make sure as you're thinking about the skills that you have, how do those skills connect to new hire onboarding? How does those skills connect to the image of the organization? Saying those keywords and even thinking through that process as you're preparing for your negotiation will also help you to perk the ear of the person, the interviewer, the hiring manager, the recruiter, or your current manager that you're working with now. It'll help to perk their ear because they see that you are not able to just talk about all the great things you're doing. You're also able to clearly articulate how those things align with the business goals and objectives and what's important to them. Thank you all so much for tuning into this video where we've talked about a few alarming stats and data on women negotiating in the workplace. And we've also talked about a few tips as it relates to doing your research on the industry, the salary, doing your research on the role, and then also being very clear on the value that you bring to an organization, clearly articulating that using buzzwords, and also making sure you're able to show how what you do is so valuable that it transforms and impacts everything you do, from talking to people, to managing a project, to dictating a task. Thank you so much. If you like this video, please go ahead and subscribe, share, and like. If you feel this video would be great for someone else, I would encourage you to please share the video. Thank you and have a great day. Goodbye.